Behind the facade of familial love, a sinister plot often takes root, fueled by the insatiable desires for wealth, power, or status. Sometimes the betrayal is even more insidious, a deliberate setup designed to ensnare an innocent into a web of dangerous illegality. This is a story of such a betrayal, where the most trusted bond becomes the most dangerous trap. It's about a hidden agenda, a manipulated identity, and the chilling realization that your entire existence is merely a pawn in someone else's desperate game. The scent of pine cleaner and stale coffee hung heavy in the air of the Vance family kitchen, a familiar aroma that usually signified the calm before the storm of a family road trip. But this morning, July 20th, 2025, felt different. A prickle of unease had settled under Elara's skin the moment she'd woken, an almost imperceptible shift in the atmosphere, like the sudden silence before a heavy rain. She tried to brush it off, attributing it to pre-travel jitters, but the feeling persisted, a dull throb behind her temples. "Are you sure you packed enough layers, sweetie?" her mother, Sarah, called from the hallway, her voice a cheerful counterpoint to Elara's internal disquiet. "Grand Teton can get chilly, even in late summer." "I've got everything, Mom," Elara replied, her voice a little too bright. She was kneeling by Liam's duffel bag in the living room, wrestling with a particularly stubborn zipper. Their parents had already loaded most of their own luggage into the minivan, leaving Liam's inexplicably overflowing bag as the last frontier. Liam himself was, predictably, still asleep, having spent most of the previous night perfecting his latest abstract painting. Typical Liam. Charming, talented, infuriatingly irresponsible. The bag felt oddly heavy, its canvas straining at the seams. Elara grunted, tugging harder. That's when her fingers brushed against something hard and rectangular, tucked deep beneath the chaotic jumble of paint tubes, crumpled sketchbooks, and a suspiciously large roll of bubble wrap. Curiosity, a trait her mother often chastised her for, got the better of her. She plunged her hand deeper, pulling out a slim, dark blue booklet. A passport. Her brow furrowed. Liam had a passport. She'd seen it countless times, battered and worn from his various spontaneous, artistic pilgrimages across Europe. This one was pristine, unnervingly new. And the name on the front was not Liam Vance. It read, Elias Thorne. A jolt, cold and sharp, shot through her. Elias Thorne. Who was that? A client? A new art dealer? Liam was always getting into strange collaborations, but why would he have someone else's passport? She flipped it open, a knot tightening in her stomach. And then her breath hitched. The world tilted on its axis. Staring back at her from the laminated page was her own face. Her heart began to pound, a frantic drumbeat against her ribs. It wasn't just her face. It was a photo taken recently, perhaps from her LinkedIn profile, or one of the rare family photos Liam had coaxed her into. The same slightly awkward smile, the same glint in her eyes from the flash. Every detail meticulously reproduced, but it wasn't her name. It was Elias Thorne. And the birth date listed? It was hers too, give or take a few days. Close enough to be mistaken, to be intentionally misleading. The familiar hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, the distant chirping of birds outside, all faded into a muffled roar in her ears. The air suddenly felt thick, oppressive. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a joke. This was something far, far darker. Her mind, usually so orderly and logical, scrambled for an explanation, any explanation, but found none that didn't send shivers down her spine. Why did Liam have her photo on a passport under a different name? She carefully slipped the passport back into the bag, her fingers trembling. Her eyes darted around the living room, suddenly seeing familiar objects through a new, distorted lens. The worn leather armchair where Liam often sketched, the overflowing bookshelves where his art books mingled with her true crime novels, the family photos on the mantel, smiling faces, shared memories. Were they all a lie? A cold wave of dread washed over her as scattered fragments of recent weeks, dismissed as Liam's usual eccentricities, began to coalesce into a chilling mosaic. The sudden, unexplained bursts of cash Liam had been flashing around, a new expensive art supply set, treating their parents to lavish dinners, even insisting on covering most of the trip expenses. He'd brushed it off as a new commission, but he'd been unusually vague about the details. Then there were the hushed phone calls he'd take, stepping out of the room, his voice low and urgent. The way he'd been pushing this particular road trip almost aggressively, insisting on the Grand Teton destination, a place they hadn't visited since she was a child. He'd even been insistent on her coming, despite her initial reservations about taking time off work. "Come on, Elara, it's Mom and Dad's big anniversary. And besides, you need a break from crunching numbers. Think of the fresh air, the inspiration. Maybe you'll even find a nice park ranger to fall in love with," he'd teased, his eyes sparkling with a familiar charm that now felt manipulative. She remembered him asking for her photo for a surprise collage a few weeks ago, specifically requesting a high-resolution digital copy. She'd laughed, calling him cheesy, but had sent it without a second thought. Now, her stomach churned. It wasn't for a collage. It was for this. The front door opened, and her father, Richard, boomed, "Almost ready to roll, kids? Liam, you up yet?" Elara flinched, snapping out of her daze. She quickly zipped the duffel bag, trying to steady her breathing. She couldn't let them see her panic. Not yet. She needed to think. She needed to understand. Liam ambled into the living room then, rubbing sleep from his eyes, a lopsided grin on his face. "Morning, sunshine. Digging through my secrets, are we?" he joked, completely oblivious to the earthquake he had just unleashed within her. She forced a smile, a brittle, strained thing. "Just trying to make sure your art supplies don't explode all over Mom's clean minivan." Her voice sounded thin, alien. He chuckled, a sound that now grated on her nerves. "Don't worry, I'm an expert packer. You ready for the open road, sis? Nostalgia Lane, here we come!" Nostalgia Lane. The irony was a bitter taste in her mouth. The road ahead suddenly felt less like a path to cherished memories and more like a dark, winding tunnel leading to an unknown abyss. Her brother, her own flesh and blood, was somehow involved in something terrifying, and she was at the heart of it, an unwitting participant. The happy family trip was a lie. Her life, perhaps, was a lie. She had to play along, for now. She had to pretend everything was normal while her mind raced, trying to piece together the shattered fragments of her trust. What was Elias Thorne meant for? What was Liam's game? And what role was she, Elara Vance, supposed to play in this terrifying masquerade? As they piled into the minivan, the morning sun glinting off the windshield, a terrifying thought crystallized in her mind. This wasn't just about Liam's shady dealings. The passport, with her face, with her identity, meant she was implicated. She was a tool, and tools, she knew, were often discarded once their purpose was served. The family road trip wasn't just a cover. It was part of the trap. The initial hours of the drive were a blur of forced smiles, strained small talk, and the constant hum of the highway. Elara sat in the back, ostensibly absorbed in her book, but her mind was a whirlwind of frantic deductions. She replayed every conversation, every interaction with Liam over the past few months, searching for clues, for any signs she might have missed. There was the incident 2 months ago, when Liam had accidentally spilled coffee on her laptop, insisting on taking it to a friend to fix, rather than letting her take it to a professional.
He'd returned it 2 days later, clean and functioning, but she remembered a strange flicker of light from the webcam indicator, even when she wasn't using it. Was he installing something? Accessing her files? Then the sudden push for her to renew her passport, even though it wasn't expired. "Just in case, Elara, you never know when you might need to jet off to Paris for an impromptu art show," he'd said, laughing. She'd gone through the process, providing all her biometric data, her signature. Had he intercepted the new one and replaced it with a fake, or somehow used her legitimate details to forge another? The new passport she had in her purse was still the old one, but its validity extended for years. How did he get this new one? The answers remained elusive, but the dread deepened with every mile they put between them and their familiar home. She looked out the window at the passing scenery, rolling farmlands giving way to distant, majestic mountains. The world outside seemed oblivious to the silent, personal apocalypse unfolding within the confines of their family minivan. She risked a glance at Liam, who was chatting animatedly with their father in the passenger seat, his profile etched against the sunlight. He looked so normal, so carefree. The perfect son, the loving brother. The thought that this man, her brother, could be capable of such calculated deception, such cold manipulation, sent a shiver down her spine that had nothing to do with the air conditioning.
It was a betrayal so profound, it threatened to unravel the very fabric of her reality. He's playing a role, she realized. He's been playing a role for a long time, and I was too blind, too trusting to see it. The memory of a specific argument flashed through her mind. Years ago, when they were teenagers, Liam had been caught shoplifting. Their parents had been devastated. Elara had defended him fiercely, believing his tearful apologies, his promises to change. He'd seemed genuinely remorseful. Now she wondered if that too had been an act, a rehearsal for the grand deception he was now orchestrating. Had she always been so easily manipulated? The thought was a bitter pill to swallow. The silence grew heavy in the back of the car, broken only by the parents' easy banter and the occasional directions from the GPS. Elara pretended to nap, her eyes closed, but her mind raced. She needed to know more. What was the purpose of Elias Thorne? Identity theft was one thing, but the urgency, the secrecy, the bizarre timing with the family trip, it felt like a prelude to something much larger, something far more dangerous than just financial fraud. They stopped for lunch at a roadside diner, a greasy spoon with chipped formica tables and the smell of fried food clinging to the air. Elara watched Liam closely as he ordered, chatting amiably with the waitress, his charm effortless. He was a master of disguise, not just physically, but emotionally. How many times had she fallen for it? How many times had he used her trust against her? She excused herself to the restroom, her phone clutched in her hand. Her mind was already formulating a plan. She couldn't confront him, not yet, not without more information, not while they were trapped in a car for days. She needed proof. She needed to understand the scope of his treachery. Inside the cramped stall, she pulled out her phone, her fingers trembling as she typed Elias Thorne into the search bar. The internet, usually a chaotic mess of information, offered tantalizingly little. A few dead-end social media profiles, clearly not hers. No major news articles. It was as if Elias Thorne was a ghost, a name meticulously scrubbed from public record.
This only confirmed her suspicions. This identity was meant for something illicit, something that required complete anonymity. She remembered an old, shared email account Liam and she had created years ago for a joint art project. It was mostly dormant now, but maybe, just maybe, he'd used it for something related to this. Or perhaps he had created a new, hidden account linked to the Elias Thorne identity. The thought was a long shot, but she had to try everything. Back at the table, Liam was talking about the beautiful landscapes they would see in Grand Teton. "You can almost smell the pine trees, can't you, Elara?" he said, his eyes twinkling. She managed a weak nod, forcing herself to maintain composure. The pine trees, she thought grimly, might just be covering up a grave. As they continued their journey, The sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery oranges and purples. It was a beautiful, serene sight, utterly at odds with the turmoil raging within Elara. She thought about her parents, blissfully unaware in the front seats. How would they react? Could she even tell them? The thought of shattering their idyllic world, of exposing their beloved son as a criminal, was almost as terrifying as the conspiracy itself. But what if they were involved too? A terrifying, fleeting thought. No. She immediately dismissed it. Her parents were good, honest people. They wouldn't be part of something like this. Liam must be manipulating them too, using their love and trust as a shield, just as he was using hers. She needed to find the real story. She needed to know what this Elias Thorne was truly for. Was it a simple case of identity theft for financial gain? Or was it something far more dangerous, a setup for a crime that would leave her irrevocably entangled? The looming presence of Grand Teton, once a symbol of childhood wonder, now felt like a giant, foreboding trap. The first day of the trip concluded with them checking into a quaint motel on the outskirts of a small town. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of wood smoke from a nearby fireplace. While her parents settled in, Elara subtly observed Liam. He was on his phone again, whispering, his back turned to her. He seemed agitated, stressed, a stark contrast to his earlier carefree demeanor. The cracks in his facade were beginning to show. Later that night, as silence descended upon the motel, Elara lay awake in her bed, staring at the dimly lit ceiling. Her phone was clutched in her hand. She had to act. She had to find a way to access Liam's digital life, to uncover the truth behind Elias Thorne. It was a dangerous game, but her own survival, her very freedom, depended on it. She recalled Liam's habit of jotting down notes on his old beat-up tablet. He often left it lying around, confident in her lack of interest in his artistic ramblings. It was a slim chance, but it was a chance. She knew his usual password pattern, a combination of their childhood pet's name and a significant date. It was a long shot, but fueled by adrenaline and a growing sense of desperation, she had to try. Her heart pounded as she quietly slipped out of her room, tiptoeing down the short hallway to Liam's room. The door was slightly ajar, a sliver of light escaping from under it. He was probably still awake, working on something, or on the phone again. She listened, holding her breath. The faint murmur of his voice, too low to distinguish words, confirmed her suspicion. This was her window of opportunity. She knew his tablet would be nearby. She just needed a few minutes, just enough time to get a glimpse, to find a clue. The family trip, once a symbol of reunion and joy, had become a desperate race against time, a quiet battle for survival waged within the confines of a motel room, under the very nose of the man who sought to destroy her. The next few days in the wilderness of Grand Teton would not be about breathtaking views or nostalgic memories, but about uncovering a truth that threatened to shatter her family, and perhaps end her life as she knew it. The shadow of Elias Thorne loomed, threatening to consume everything. The motel room was stifling, not from the heat, but from the suffocating weight of Elara's newfound knowledge. Liam's gentle snores from the next room were a cruel lullaby, a stark contrast to the storm raging within her. Elias Thorne. The name echoed like a death knell in her mind. Her face on that passport, a stolen identity, a life now irrevocably intertwined with her brother's dark machinations. She lay still, every nerve ending screaming, straining to hear any sound that wasn't her own frantic heartbeat. The plan began to form, not a grand cinematic scheme, but a quiet, desperate maneuver born of necessity. She had to gather proof. She couldn't confront Liam without it. His charm was a weapon, his lies meticulously crafted.
He would twist her words, gaslight her, make her seem paranoid. She couldn't risk it. Her target? Liam's old beat-up tablet. He often left it charging on his nightstand, confident in her disinterest in his artistic ramblings. A risky move, but her only immediate option. She knew his password patterns, a childhood pet's name, a significant date. He was sentimental, despite his sinister new hobby. Minutes stretched into an eternity. The digital clock on the bedside table glowed 2:37 a.m. She took a deep, shaky breath, the cold motel air biting at her lungs. Slowly, silently, she slipped out of bed. The floorboards creaked faintly under her bare feet, each sound magnified in the oppressive quiet. She tiptoed down the short hallway separating their rooms, her hand reaching for Liam's door. It was, as she'd hoped, slightly ajar, a sliver of faint light escaping from under it. She froze, listening. The soft, rhythmic sound of his breathing confirmed he was deeply asleep. Good. With a silent prayer, she nudged the door open just enough to slip through, her body a shadow in the dimness. Liam lay sprawled on the bed, a stray arm hanging off the side, a half-empty glass of water on the nightstand. And there it was, his tablet, plugged into the wall, its screen dark. Her fingers trembled as she picked it up, the cool metal a stark contrast to her burning skin. She moved to the desk by the window, sitting on the edge of the chair, her back to the door, a flimsy shield against discovery.
The login screen stared back at her. She typed in Buster, their golden retriever from childhood, then the year their parents got married. Incorrect password. Her heart sank. She tried another variation, Buster 1995. Bingo. The screen flickered, revealing his home screen. Her eyes frantically scanned for anything unusual. Most of it was typical Liam. Art apps, social media, obscure music streaming services. But then, tucked away in a rarely used folder labeled Inspirations, she found it. Not documents, but a series of encrypted messages, labeled only with dates and cryptic symbols. And a secure messaging app she didn't recognize, its icon a stylized raven. She clicked on the Raven app, her breath catching in her throat. It required a separate passcode. Liam, always predictable in his unpredictability, often used variations of his existing passwords. She tried Buster 1995! Then Elias Thorne! No. What else was important to him? Art. Success. Her. A cold wave washed over her as she typed, "My masterpiece." The app opened. Her eyes widened, devouring the messages. They weren't just hushed phone calls. They were intricate, detailed instructions. Names, dates, locations, all coded in a strange jargon. References to the package, the transfer, and a looming deadline linked to their Grand Teton trip. The most chilling part, several messages explicitly mentioned the asset, and the accompanying context, though veiled, made it horrifyingly clear that the asset was her. Her personal details, her travel itinerary, even notes about her anxiety and tendency to overthink, all meticulously documented. Liam was reporting on her every step of the way. One message, dated just a week ago, stood out. Assets passport ready. Thorne identity secured. Alpine rendezvous on schedule. Final details when we reach the summit. Alpine rendezvous. Summit. Grand Teton. It wasn't just about stealing her identity. It was about using her as a human package, a delivery, or perhaps a sacrifice. The scale of the betrayal was monumental. This wasn't a family trip, it was a setup. And the summit was the destination, the climax of his scheme. She had to get out. But how? She couldn't run, they were deep in the mountains, and Liam wouldn't let her out of his sight. She had to play along. Act normal.
Pretend to be the naive, trusting sister he believed her to be. Her mind raced, formulating a counterplan. If he was manipulating her, she could manipulate him back. She started by taking screenshots of the most incriminating messages, sending them to her secure cloud storage. Then, cautiously, she began digging deeper into the tablet's files. She found a hidden folder containing scans of her birth certificate, social security card, and even a deed for a small plot of land she'd inherited from her grandmother, all under the name Elias Thorne. He wasn't just planning to use her, he was planning to replace her, at least legally. A cold, hard knot formed in her stomach. What was the end game? Was it a large-scale financial fraud, using her new identity to acquire illicit assets? Or was it something far more dangerous, a way to frame her for a crime under the name Elias Thorne, leaving her completely exposed while he walked free? The latter seemed more plausible, given the secrecy and the direct implication of her image. She heard a faint groan from Liam's room. Her heart leapt into her throat. Time was running out. She quickly closed the app, deleted her search history, and replaced the tablet exactly as she found it. She slipped back into her own room, the silence now feeling less oppressive and more like a fragile shield. The next morning, Elara emerged from her room, a forced smile plastered on her face, the terrifying truth a heavy weight beneath her cheerful facade. She felt like an actress on a stage, playing the role of the innocent sister. Liam, bright-eyed and energetic, chatted about the day's itinerary, a scenic drive, a short hike, and then settling into their cabin closer to the park. "Ready for some fresh air, sis?" he asked, throwing an arm around her shoulder. The touch, once comforting, now felt like a viper's coil. She flinched internally, but managed a convincing nod. "Definitely. Been cooped up too long," she replied, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. The drive was punctuated by Elara's internal monologues, a constant stream of strategy and fear. She needed a secure line of communication, away from Liam's watchful eyes. Her personal phone, she realized, might be compromised. He'd spilled coffee on her laptop. Who knew what he'd done to her phone? Her parents, oblivious, pointed out wildflowers and distant peaks, their innocent joy a painful contrast to Elara's grim determination. She found herself subtly testing Liam, dropping seemingly innocent questions about their destination, about the business opportunity he'd hinted at. He was vague, dismissive, always redirecting. His answers were practiced, smooth. A master manipulator. They arrived at the secluded cabin near the Grand Teton National Park entrance by late afternoon. It was rustic, charming, surrounded by towering pines. Perfect for a family getaway. Perfect for a trap. As they unloaded the car, Elara noticed a small, old-fashioned landline phone tucked away in a corner of the cabin's living room. No cell service, according to Liam earlier, but a landline? That could be her lifeline. Later that evening, after a shared meal that Elara barely tasted, her parents settled down to play cards, and Liam retreated to his room, ostensibly to work on some sketches. This was her chance. She quietly made her way to the landline, her heart thumping. She had an old contact, a former cybersecurity colleague named Mark. He was notoriously private and paranoid, exactly what she needed. She dialed his number, remembering it from years ago. The phone rang, once, twice, a nerve-wracking eternity. "Hello," Mark's gruff voice answered. "Mark, it's Elara Vance," she whispered, her voice barely audible. There was a pause. "Elara? Vance? What in the world? You never call!" "I need your help. It's urgent. I think my life is in danger. And my brother, he's involved." The line went silent for a moment. Then Mark's voice, now sharper, more serious. "What did you find, Elara? You sound like you've seen a ghost." "Worse," she breathed. "I found a passport with my picture, under a different name, Elias Thorne. And I've seen messages. He's using me for something big, something criminal. I think he's trying to frame me." Mark let out a low whistle. "A ghost identity. That's sophisticated. You're deep in this, aren't you?" "I'm at Grand Teton, with them. This whole trip is a setup. I need you to find everything you can on Elias Thorne, and I need a way to communicate securely without him knowing. Can you do it?" "It'll be risky, Elara, but if what you're saying is true, you're in a very dangerous position. Give me what you have."
Any detail, any lead. Elara quickly relayed the information she'd gleaned from Liam's tablet, the cryptic messages, the Alpine rendezvous, and summit references. Mark listened intently, his questions precise and rapid-fire. "Okay," Mark said, his voice grim. "Stay calm. Act normal. Don't let him know you know. I'll get to work. I'll find a way to reach you. Look for a message, a sign, something subtle. Don't trust any digital communication that isn't from me directly on a channel we set up." "Thank you, Mark," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "You're my only hope." She hung up, her hand shaking as she replaced the receiver. The phone, a simple relic, had become her lifeline, a fragile thread connecting her to the outside world, to a chance at freedom. She glanced towards Liam's room. The door was still closed. He was still unaware, for now. But the clock was ticking. The summit was approaching. She was no longer just the victim. She was a player in Liam's deadly game, and she intended to win. The serene mountains outside were a beautiful deception, hiding the true treachery that lay beneath. Her brother, the serpent in her garden, was about to find out that even the most trusting sister could bite back. The quiet, deadly dance had truly begun.
The air in the Grand Teton cabin grew colder with each passing hour, mirroring the chill that had settled deep within Elara's bones. Mark's words echoed in her mind. "Don't let him know you know." It was a mantra, a fragile shield against the terror that gnawed at her. She played the part of the oblivious sister with a chilling precision she hadn't known she possessed. She laughed at Liam's jokes, listened patiently to her parents' anecdotes, all while her mind meticulously pieced together the fragments of his dark design. Mark had sent a cryptic message to her old, rarely used personal email, a single emoji of a raven's, confirming he was on the case. It was a small victory, but it fueled her resolve. The digital ghost, Elias Thorne, was no longer just a name. It was a blueprint of her impending doom. Liam's agitation grew more palpable as they approached the summit. He was on his phone constantly, whispering, his eyes darting. He'd insist on short solo walks, returning with a strained energy that bordered on manic. One afternoon, while her parents were napping, Elara saw him meticulously cleaning a small, inconspicuous pistol hidden in his duffel bag. Her blood ran cold. This wasn't just about money or identity. This was about something far more lethal. The summit was set for the following evening, a supposed celebratory dinner at a secluded upscale lodge tucked away deep within the park, miles from any cell signal. Liam had made the reservations weeks ago, emphasizing its exclusive nature. Now Elara knew it was a carefully chosen stage for his final act. During a casual conversation, Liam innocently mentioned that the lodge required all guests to check large bags and electronics at the front desk for security and convenience. He winked at her. "Don't want you getting distracted by work, sis." Elara forced a smile, but her heart pounded. He was trying to isolate her, to cut off her lifeline to Mark, to the outside world. This was his move to ensure she was disarmed, physically and digitally. That night, Elara began her counter-move. While Liam was preoccupied with his phone calls, she found an old, cheap, disposable cell phone in her emergency kit. It barely held a charge, but it was untraceable. She spent hours in the bathroom, using the faint Wi-Fi from the lodge's main building, meticulously transferring the crucial evidence from Liam's tablet, the messages, the scanned documents of Elias Thorne, the deed to the land, onto the disposable phone.
She then deleted everything from Liam's tablet, making it seem as if she'd found nothing. She also left a discreet, coded message for Mark via the landline, using a prearranged phrase about a change in the itinerary for the Alpine rendezvous, confirming the new location and the electronic check-in. The next morning, the day of the summit, a strange calm settled over Elara. She felt a profound sense of clarity. The fear hadn't vanished, but it was replaced by a steely resolve. She packed a small, light backpack for the hike to the lodge, ensuring the disposable phone was hidden deep within its lining, along with a small, sharpened multi-tool she'd found in her father's tackle box, a last resort. The drive to the lodge was beautiful, but Elara barely noticed the scenery. Liam was unusually quiet, a predator circling its prey. He kept glancing at her, a strange glint in his eyes. She returned his gaze with a forced softness, playing the part of the slightly nervous but excited sister. Upon arrival at the lodge, the valet immediately took their large luggage. Liam, true to his word, led them to the front desk, where a jovial attendant instructed them to place all electronic devices into a locker for a truly unplugged experience. Elara watched as Liam, with a flourish, placed his tablet and main phone into a designated slot. She then, with feigned reluctance, placed her own personal phone into a separate slot, a carefully prepared dummy phone hidden within her backpack. The disposable phone, with all the evidence, remained tucked away, a burning secret against her skin. The dinner began pleasantly enough. Her parents were enchanted by the rustic elegance of the lodge. Liam was in his element, regaling them with charming stories, playing the perfect son. But Elara saw through it all. She noticed Liam's subtle glances towards a stern-faced, impeccably dressed man sitting alone at a nearby table. A fleeting, almost imperceptible nod passed between them. The real players were here. As dessert was served, Liam suddenly stood up, raising his glass. "To Mom and Dad," he began, his voice thick with what sounded like genuine emotion. "And to new beginnings." His eyes, however, fixed on Elara, holding a chilling, knowing glint. "Especially to new beginnings. There's something important I need to discuss, Elara, privately, in the study after dinner."
Her parents beamed, oblivious. "Oh, how lovely, dear!" her mother cooed. Elara's blood ran cold. This was it, the summit, the moment of truth. She met Liam's gaze, a flicker of defiance in her eyes that she hoped he wouldn't detect. "Of course, Liam," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "I'm looking forward to it." The study was a small wood-paneled room, filled with leather-bound books and a crackling fireplace. The door closed with a soft thud, severing their connection to the outside world, to her parents' innocent world. Liam's facade dropped instantly. His eyes, once warm, were now cold, predatory. "So, Elara," he began, his voice low, devoid of its usual charm, "did you enjoy your little snooping expedition into my affairs?" Elara's breath hitched. He knew. How? Had he suspected her all along, or had she made a mistake? "I don't know what you're talking about, Liam," she said, feigning confusion, trying to buy time to control the tremor in her voice. He chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "Don't play coy, sister. I know you found the passport. I know you looked through my tablet. You're clever, I'll give you that, but not clever enough." He stepped closer, his shadow falling over her. "You see, Elara, you're a liability, but you're also an asset. a very valuable one. He began to outline his plan, his voice chillingly calm. It wasn't about money. Not directly. Liam had been hired by a powerful, shadowy organization to facilitate the escape of a high-profile criminal, a financial mastermind who had orchestrated a massive international fraud. The Elias Thorne identity, with Elara's face, was a perfectly crafted ghost identity. This criminal was scheduled to meet his contacts here at the lodge in the dead of night. Elara, as Elias Thorne, was to be the unwitting mule, providing cover, a legitimate-looking face for the criminal to use in his final escape. Her meticulous background, her lack of a criminal record, made her the perfect, unblemished alibi. The land she had inherited, now legally transferred to Elias Thorne, was to be used as a front for a fake charity, a final layer of money laundering to cover the criminal's tracks. And when the operation was complete, she, Elias Thorne, would be framed for the entire elaborate scheme, disappearing into a legal black hole, while Liam would be handsomely rewarded and walk away clean. "A clean slate from me," Elara said, a cruel smile playing on his lips.
"And a very dirty one for you." He pulled out the pistol, its dark metal glinting in the firelight. "I'm sorry, Elara, but you know too much. You finding the passport was unfortunate, a slight miscalculation on my part. I needed to ensure your complete cooperation. Now, I need to ensure your silence, permanently." Elara's mind raced, a whirlwind of fear and adrenaline. He was going to kill her, here, now, far from anyone who could help. This was the ultimate betrayal. The man who had been her confidant, her brother, was a cold-blooded murderer. "You won't get away with this, Liam," she said, her voice surprisingly steady, a new strength hardening her resolve. "Mark knows. I sent him everything. The messages, the passport, the plan. He's on his way." Liam's eyes widened, a flicker of genuine shock crossing his face. His confident smirk wavered. You called someone?" "How?" "I confiscated your phone." "You confiscated a phone," Elara retorted, a triumphant glint in her eyes. "You underestimated me, Liam. You always have." He lunged forward, the pistol raised, but Elara was faster. She had anticipated this. As he moved, she swung her backpack, aiming for his head. The small, heavy form of the disposable phone, tucked inside, connected with a sickening thud. Liam stumbled back, disoriented, the pistol clattering to the floor. Elara didn't hesitate. She scrambled for the pistol, her fingers closing around its cold grip. It felt alien, terrifying. But it was her only chance. Liam, regaining his footing, lunged again, a furious snarl on his face. He was stronger, but she had the element of surprise, and now the weapon. A desperate struggle ensued. The small study became a battleground. Books toppled, furniture scraped across the floor. Elara, fueled by a primal need for survival, fought with a ferocity she never knew she possessed. She remembered his past manipulations, the years of subtle control, the stolen photos, the casual deceptions. It all coalesced into a burning rage. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the lodge, not from the pistol in Elara's hand, but from the main entrance. Voices, shouts, the sound of running footsteps. Liam froze, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and rage. What was that? "Mark," Elara breathed, her voice filled with a cold satisfaction. "He's here. I told you, Liam. You underestimated me." Footsteps pounded outside the study door. A voice, clear and authoritative, cut through the commotion. "Police! Open up!" Liam stared at Elara, his face a mask of disbelief and pure hatred. His grand plan, his masterpiece of betrayal, was crumbling before his eyes. He made a desperate lunge for the door, but Elara, now standing firm, aimed the pistol at him, her hand steady. "It's over, Liam," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "You're done." The door burst open, revealing Mark, flanked by 2 armed park rangers and a local sheriff. Their faces were grim, their weapons drawn. Mark's eyes met Elara's, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. Liam, trapped, his eyes darting wildly, knew his game was up. He raised his hand slowly, a chilling emptiness replacing the charm and anger on his face. He was defeated. As the sheriff cuffed Liam, pulling him out of the study, Elara stood rooted to the spot, the pistol still in her hand. Her parents rushed in, their faces pale with shock and confusion. "Elara, what happened? Liam, what's going on?" her mother cried, looking between her children, trying to comprehend the nightmare unfolding before her. Elara looked from her parents' horrified faces to Liam's retreating figure, then back to the pistol in her hand. The crisis was over, but the aftermath was just beginning. The family she had fought so desperately to protect, the life she had once known, was shattered. The lines between victim and perpetrator, love and betrayal, were irrevocably blurred. She had saved herself, but at what cost? The silence in the study, now broken only by her parents' whispered questions, left a chilling, open question. Could a family, once poisoned by such profound treachery, ever truly heal? The answer, like the vast, unforgiving wilderness outside, remained unknown.